cutback for Vasilev, and Lukic! A banger of a strike for Jovan Lukic's first MLS goal!
It's fallen out to Westfield! Oh, wow! He's nearly taken the roof of the net off! Philadelphia pounce again!
Who gets his goal on his Union debut? The record signing, off and running in his first appearance for the club.
Hello and welcome to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd, and it's about time that we finally get playoff soccer returning back to MLS action. Philadelphia Union having 3 weeks off while New York City had a 2-week break, and we'll discuss. Will it be a little bit of a rust? Will it not be a little bit of a rust? No Jose Nunez tonight, but that is okay. Returning back to the podcast, you can hear him on SiriusXM FC channel 157, hosting the Coaching Academy, the Sick Podcast, NYCFC Views with Roberto Abramowitz. And you can hear him every NYCFC match day on the NYCFC network as the English play-by-play announcer, Glenn Crooks. Glenn, how you doing?
All right, big game coming up. I'm thrilled. It's always fun to be in Subaru Park. It does have a special feel to it, and I every time we go, it's really fun. So I'm anticipating fun. I hope it's a tight game. I would anticipate a tight game, but you never know. You never know.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like these matches between these two teams have always been so cagey, so close. You look at the beginning of the season, 1-0 New York City win at Citi Field. Then they come to Subaru Park, which eventually clinches the Union, the Supporters Shield championship with the 1-0 win with Mikal Uwer scoring that goal. But then, I mean, you can go back. There's been so many moments between these two teams in the playoffs. You go back to 2022 in the Eastern Conference Final. New York City take the lead in that game. The Union find a way to go ahead and score multiple consecutive goals, go on and win. We all know what happens in 2022. And then going back to 2021, and I think it's interesting, Glenn, and we can touch on this a little bit, where Matt Freese had the experience playing in 2021 for the Union, where they had multiple players missing because of COVID. And now he's on the other side of things with New York City, where now they have players missing due to injury and now suspensions with Aiden O'Neill. And so it feels like it's a full circle moment for Matt Freese, but he has the experience in these kind of matches.
Yeah, and it's not COVID, but New York City's missing a lot of players. Not as many as the Union was missing in 2021 in the Eastern Conference Final. But 3 key players are out. And Freese, returning. I asked him about that today. I chatted with him for a little bit. And he made a pretty interesting point. And I think it's salient. It's something to really put out there, is that last year in the Eastern Conference semifinal against the Red Bulls, he talked about how he was excited and his teammates were excited. But he said this time he's looking forward to, but it's not the excitement that's going to overtake him. It's the focus and the preparation. So he's a different – Matt Freese himself is a different player, far different than 2021, but even more different than 2024, because since then he's made 12 consecutive starts for the U.S. men's national team, and now is going to go in against Philadelphia as one of the most confident keepers, in our country, because of his status and his success on the national team level, but also with the New York City Football Club. So he's ready, but Aiden O'Neill suspension, Andrés Perea injury, severe injury. He's out for a long time. And Alonso Martínez on the international break in the 88th minute on one of the worst pitches in the history of soccer, artificial turf, concrete. I've actually been there and helped St. Lucia and Stern John, a former legend here, back last year in the Nations League. And my knees hurt walking to midfield and then back to the bench. This turf was astronomically poor. And Pascal Janssen, the New York City coach today, said he's 100% certain that because it was a non-contact injury in the 88th minute, that turf caused that knee to buckle and result in surgery. Andrés Perea, Pascal Janssen is 100% certain that it was turf at the Bank of America Stadium in Game 3 against Charlotte, where he fell awkwardly and broke his fibula and twisted his ankle. We don't know the full nature of his injury, but he had surgery as well. So it was interesting to hear Pascal Janssen just with unequivocally say it's the artificial surface that felled two of his players. So the one he did say, I'm glad to be going to Subaru Park and playing on grass.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it is so mind-boggling to me that we're in 2025 and we still have stadiums all over the world that have turf and everything. And the one thing that gets me is Charlotte. You have $1 billion ownership group down there that own an NFL franchise, and they can't put turf in the field and everything.
Well, it was grass. It used to be grass.
Yeah, and then they
not that long ago it was grass, and they they turfed it. So listen, yeah, Tepper, multi-billionaire, and I think it's I've said this from the outset. Gillette, the people, I've heard from New England Revolution fans. Oh, you played a baseball stadium, because I complain about Gillette, which is just a terrible soccer surface. Seattle, terrible soccer surface. Portland, they can talk to their blue about the FIFA approved surface that they have. Terrible surface. It's not a good soccer playing surface. Sorry, it's the best of the group of artificial BC Place, terrible artificial surface. So I don't want to hear about FIFA approved. I don't want to hear about anything. I want grass. So that's my rant for the night.
I'm with you, Glenn. I mean, there's a reason why you look at Mercedes-Benz Stadium, you look at Lumen Field, you look at Gillette. There's a reason why FIFA is coming in here and saying you guys need to have grass fields by the time the World Cup's around. And I'm sure you saw it on social media. There was a video going around where in the NFL world where they were showing Real Madrid Stadium how they have grass fields underneath the soccer field surface. Yeah. And for me, like, I don't understand why we can't get these $1 billion owners installing something like that into the football fields. Why not have grass fields underneath Mercedes-Benz Stadium? Why not have it in Charlotte? I know it's going to cost, but these are some of the richest people in the United States, and they own multiple teams, and so I'm sure they could afford it. And it's a shame to see Alonso Martínez, who's been so hot for New York City this season. Andrés Perea, who, look, we know his time was short here in Philadelphia, and goes and gets new life and really comes into his own this season with New York City. And
it's a big loss. Well, they have to replace an entire midfield in this game. So and then their striker. I'm sure they'll put Nico Fernandez Mercado at striker. He's not a striker, but this is the necessity of it. He is a goal scorer, and he's starting to show that sort of a consistency in putting the ball in the back of the net. That brace, his first MLS brace in Game 3 against Charlotte, those goals were sensational. And so he's got it in him. But, also Alonso Martínez was playing with him during that game. And Martínez draws a crowd sometimes. So, and that frees up Fernandez Mercado and did in that game. So it's a really, it's an intriguing matchup always, but this one in particular. And I didn't get an opportunity to listen to Bradley Carnell's presser today. I do know that he addressed the Ernst Tanner thing briefly, and which he should, and he should keep it brief because it can't be a distraction for the team, and I don't think it will be. It's unfortunate, but it's something that at least should have been addressed, however briefly, and I'm glad he did. But did he say anything else of note in the presser?
Yeah, we'll play a couple of the clips tonight, giving high praise to New York City with their injuries, and saying that, look, they basically had a next man up mentality, just like the Union have had this season with injuries. And
sure,
I think that's been key for the Union to get this far. And I'm sure Pascal Janssen would say the same thing. You, covering New York City, being around that club weekly, would probably say the same thing too, that you've seen a next man up mentality in that squad all season long. And
well, part of it is my first interview with Pascal. I was out in California at that Coachella. Philadelphia doesn't go there, but there's going to be 13 teams, MLS teams there this year. They hold it in February, and they'll play 3 or 4 preseason games against each other. It's a really cool event. But that's where I first met him. And in the some of his first words were bulletproof mindset. Mostly he was talking about the road, because New York City had only one road win out of 17 in 2024. So it was something that really needed to be addressed. And this year, 6 wins, 6 losses, and 5 draws. And then winning the 2 out of 3 against Charlotte were both road wins. So that bulletproof mindset has really come into play. They're tough, and they are playing it with a professional manner. If they get a lead, they now know how to protect it a little bit better and keep it and build on it, which in the early up till midpoint of the season was not the case. So they're a much better team now. But you take that first game that New York City at Citi Field won back in, I think it was April. It was Keaton Parks passing the ball to Micha Ilinic, who played the ball through to Alonso Martínez, who got him behind and scored for 1-0. Well, Keaton Parks is out for the season. Micha Ilinic doesn't play anymore, pretty much. He's behind Tavon Gray at right back, and Alonso Martínez is out of the match. So the 3 guys that combined for the goal and the win earlier in the year are not going to be contributing. So there you go.
Absolutely. It's like you see my show notes, Glenn. A lot of points you brought up, and we'll go back and touch on them for people that are like, oh, why are you skipping ahead, Todd? We'll come back to them. But I do want to talk about this break. I mean, Jose and I talked about this 2 weeks ago, how, this isn't the best case scenario for the Union, having 3 weeks off. New York City, like you said in the intro, 2 weeks off. And it's the day and age that we live in with MLS. I mean, I guess the good thing is MLS kind of caught everybody by surprise yesterday and released the 2026 schedule. And they announced the playoffs next year. There will be no interruptions due to the international break. But unfortunately, that plays a factor into this season's playoffs. And what I found interesting, and you and Roberto were talking about it a little bit, this was the first day that Pascal Janssen had his full team available, minus the players that are injured and suspended for the match. Players coming back from international duty, Matt Freese, Kevin O'Toole. But that seems absurd to me. So you get 2 full days of training, and then you go out and play a game. I mean, as a coach,
a big game.
How can you prepare for that? And you're a former coach yourself, Glenn, where in the college game, I'm sure maybe not as long as a break. We've seen the Union near New England a few years ago, but you going into preseason and then starting your first game, there's a lot of preparation going into this. I mean, how as a coach do you prepare your team for such a long layoff and then you get back to play? You
have a rhythm that sometimes what you can do. I think one time we brought in alumni to just and had a kind of a good old time, but it also we asked them, we want you to take it seriously because we're trying a few things here. And if you have a large enough roster, you can do intra squads, but that's not the same. We know. And sometimes those breaks, you don't want a 3-week break. No one ever, you don't want a 2-week break. But you know what? If you can give your guys at the end of the regular season or at the end of a best of 3 playoff series, and a guy like 38-year-old Maxi Morales, he could use a couple of days to just put his feet up. And that's what you'd want to do, but not those extended periods. And these athletes, they don't want that much time off. They want to get on to the next game, and they don't want to practice for 3 weeks either. Players, whether they admit it or not, they don't really like practice. They just want to play games. So, I mean, I don't want to say they don't like it, like they hate it. It's just, but at this point of the year, it's like, all right. And they'll put it in and they'll do the things they need to, but they just want to play games. So it is tough, and you have to be creative as a coach as to how you break everything down. Maybe you throw in something a little more entertaining in there during that 2 or 3 week period. I don't know, you go out bowling, who knows what you do. Those are the kinds of things I would do, to try to get some, do some cross training, just something that takes you away from it so that you're not just, it's almost like, it reminds me of when you go on the road and you're in a hotel all day and then you have to play a game at night. It's really important to get the players out. You walk around town, whatever you got to do, you have to kind of change the scenery a little bit so that they're mentally prepared for the next step. But the one thing I like about Pascal Janssen, he has always said this, and I'm sure he relays this to his team, is that we can't control. This is what we have. So let's deal with it and deal with it the best way we can. And the best way we can deal with it is not worry about it. Let's just keep preparing in the way that the staff asks you to prepare. And that's that's exactly the way you should handle it. That's exactly the way.
Yeah, I agree. And there was a viral clip halfway through the season where Bradley Cornell took his team out go-karting and everything, and it seemed like the team was enjoying that. They thought they were coming in for a full day of practice, and he said, "No, we're getting in the van."
Exactly. And that's the way you do it too. Exactly. You surprise them because that really, all those different things that go off in a positive way in the brain. Dopamine or whatever else it is. That is classic. That's what you do. I didn't know that story, so I'm glad to hear that one.
Yeah, it was a pretty cool moment watching the players really be excited, thinking that they're going to have another hard practice, and nope, it's time to go on the go-karts and be competitive out on the track with each other. But I mentioned it. Jose and I talked about it a couple of weeks ago, and I'm sure Union fans probably don't want to hear me mention it again, but this is a Union team that has really struggled coming off of long breaks. They had a 1-1 draw against Toronto at home this season, coming off a 2-week break after playing Colorado, which they won that game 3-1. They beat Charlotte 2-1 after a 2-week break. They had multiple players missing in the summertime due to the Gold Cup. But everybody's going to remember that 7-0 loss to Vancouver after a 2-week break. And then after they lose 7-0, they have to go and fly to Nashville in the U.S. Open Cup. And they lose that game 3-1. And then the season after, they beat New York City. There's a 2-week break, and they lose 2-0 down in Charlotte. It's playoffs specifically 2023. After a 17-day break, after beating New England at the last game of the regular season, the Union lose to FC Cincinnati. 2022, 11-day break. They beat Cincinnati that year. 2021, they beat New York Red Bulls after a 13-day break. And then 2020, which is crazy, the Union win their first Supporter Shield. Number 1 seed. Play New England feels like 20 times that season. New England comes in, beats them 2-0 after a 16-day break. And you had mentioned it, Glenn. Nobody likes these long layoffs and everything. Yes, the Union have had nagging injuries to Mikhail Uwer, Indiana Vasilev. Nobody asked injury updates for Bradley Cornell today at his press conference. So we'll see where those two guys stand for Sunday's match against New York City come, I would imagine, 5
o'clock tomorrow. Yeah, I think that's what I hear.
Player availability report from MLS. So yeah, we'll see who's on there, who's not on there. But we've also heard Bradley Cornell's in the past say that players are questionable, and then they wind up starting the match and everything. So I don't know, is it a little bit of a chess move from Bradley Cornell? Who knows? And so we'll see what happens come 5 o'clock with who's on there, who's not on there. But yeah, in my opinion, I think Union fans would tell you too, that 3-week break. Yeah, this is going to be a negative effect on the game. Me personally, I think we're going to see both teams trying to feel each other out. I wouldn't be surprised if we see New York City sit a little bit deeper than they normally do. But yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if we go into the half and this game's tied 0-0 just because of that. These two teams trying to get the rust off of their feet.
Yeah. Well, I think Philadelphia's going to put the pressure on from the outset, and that's what Charlotte did in Game 3. And look, New York City, and they deserved it, but they were somewhat fortunate because there was an awful amount. I mean, it was just a surge on goal, but they never got it to goal. New York City had 7 block shots in that game. Justin Hack had a bunch early on in the opening 15 or 20 minutes. And, so Matt Freese really didn't have to make a save in that period of time where all the pressure on was Charlotte putting on New York City, but the defenders had to do a lot of work to make sure it didn't get to goal, and they kind of held firm there, and then that's what got them into the game. So you may be right. New York City may be aware of what kind of pressure that Philadelphia will put on them, and then just ward it off early on. And that's been typical in athletics, right? In a lot of team sports, in a situation like this, and you're on the road in particular, is, the opponent just comes out and puts all the pressure on. You just have to, if you can withstand it and get through it, then the game becomes a little bit more level after that. So I wouldn't be surprised if it kind of goes that way.
Yeah, absolutely. We'll see how the game plays out. But I mean, we know these two teams know each other very well. They always seem to be high intensity, low scoring games. We've seen this season, and yeah, I mean, they always seem to meet in high pressure moments, and we mentioned that at the beginning of the show. But you had talked about it a little bit, Glenn, just Pascal talking at the beginning of the season with you about how the road form needs to be better for this team. You look at the last 10 games for New York City in all competitions, 7-2-1. You mentioned it. We all know they won both away games against Charlotte in round 1 of the best of 3, and they take Charlotte to penalties in the second game and wound up losing that game in penalties. And I don't know if a lot of people had New York City advancing through that round. I thought New York City were coming into that game in a lot of form, especially watching how hard they played Philadelphia a couple weeks prior, where, they only lose that game 1-0, have a goal ruled off for offsides in the second half of that game. But I
correctly so, though. They were
sure. And Ty Gruber, if I'm not mistaken, too, also had a goal ruled off that would have made it 2-0 in the second half.
Yeah.
So
I mean, the big moment in that game was Alonso Martínez dribbling Andre Blake and then just missing the goal. I mean, now that's 1-0. There were two big moments similar. Martínez and one other that it could have easily been New York City up 2, and then Philadelphia scores before the half, and that really changes the grip of the game. So I expected, despite the New York City absences, I think it'll still be tight in that way, because the wild card here, which I don't know if you would have brought his name up, but is Johnny Shore, this teenager who played a lot in the early portion of the season because of the absence of Andrés Perea, who was injured a little bit back early on. Aiden O'Neill was a transfer. He was kind of still feeling his way. Keaton Parks was in and out of the lineup. So Johnny Shore logged 11 starts, through the course of the season. He hasn't played much lately. He hasn't started since a game since July, and that was Leagues Cup against Toluca. But he's a pretty mentally strong kid. I mean, his first game as a pro was against Messi and Inter Miami in the opener this year, and he was fine. He had no issues at all. So now he's going to be in a playoff game in Philadelphia, in Chester at Subaru. Pretty interesting atmosphere for him to be into, and I think his response to all this, because part of New York City solving the pressure is going to be playing it into the midfielders, and Johnny Shore is he's not a guaranteed lock to start, but I think he is, because if you look at the pecking order of the midfielders, I mean, 2 of them are down. Justin Hack's not really a midfielder, but he hasn't been. He's been in the back, but I'm sure he'll come back into the midfield too. So I would expect Hack and Shore in the midfield. But how this teenager responds to all this is going to be, I think, a big part of the outcome of the game.
Well, if you get thrown into your very first match against Messi and you do fine against him, I think you'll do fine in the playoffs. I mean, what a game to get thrown into. You debuted against Lionel Messi. How many young players can say, I debuted against Messi and held my own? So it's a pretty cool story that I wasn't aware of, and I'm sure the listeners of the show weren't aware of that either. But just going back to the away form, only 2 goals conceded in the last 3, once in Charlotte, once in Philly. They've had 6 different goal scorers, 19 goals scored in the last 10 away games. 11 of those were Alonso Martínez. Yes, we know, not playing in this game, but defensively is what I want to focus on. What's been the difference for New York City, in your opinion, Glenn, these last 10 games where, as I mentioned, a 7-2-1 record in all competitions?
Well, you have Matt Freese in goal. That helps. And then, you look at the spine and the central defenders. Thiago Martins is the captain, the DP. And he's been fantastic this year. And he's got pace. No one has been able to outrun him this year. Anybody that's come in, they play a ball through, or Martins can outrun or at least stay stride for stride with anybody in the league, and that's really important. And he knows when to maybe play it back to Freese, when to just clear his lines. So he's become a very integral part of the back line, has been, for the last 3 years, to be honest. But this year in particular, he's been very, very good. Now, he's either paired with Justin Hack or one of the late acquisitions, Raul Gustavo, and Hack and him have really formed a nice partnership. So that's part of this missing midfield, Aiden O'Neill and Andrés Perea. And if Hack does have to come into the midfield, you're breaking up a partnership that has been really, really important during that stretch of games that you've talked about. It's mostly been those 2, with Gustavo coming in on occasion. So that's an important consideration there. But the spine and part of defending is that midfield. So you lose those 2. And then the spine is also the striker, Martínez, who doesn't necessarily win a lot of balls up top, but that is where the defending starts for New York City. And what he's learned to do, and what they've done as a group, is he'll guide the ball to the player that New York City wants to have the ball. Let's just say it's Kai Wagner, which probably it's not, but they will guide it in that direction. And then that's where they're going to press or try to win the ball. Or maybe they just want him to serve because it's not going to be accurate. I'm using probably the poorest example because of Wagner's ability to serve the ball. But that's the kind of thing that they've done really well. So you're missing a lot of people who have understood their roles in defending. And that's why New York City hasn't given up many goals.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense to me. Maybe they target the right side of the field with either Nathan Harry or Frankie Westfield, who has been outstanding for the Union this season. But yeah, I'd be surprised, as you said, if it was Kai Wagner's side, just because of how well he is at crossing.
Yeah, that's just an
example. I know,
trying to give the guiding versus running up to win the ball. That guiding is so important because you're playing that player. Maybe you're playing it into their weaker foot, that kind of thing. All those things are taken into consideration, and not just with Pascal Janssen in New York City. That's, when people are taking the press into consideration, all those things become a factor. You scout the opponent, and then you try to get the ball to the player that's least comfortable on it, and then you attack.
Yeah. Well, let's go ahead and play one of the clips. Bradley Cornell talking about that New York City away form, and just how he believes that there have other players stepping up with absences.
Every team that's at this stage of the tournament, there's something going for them, and they have quality, and they, deservedly get to the last four of a conference, right? So whether it's been away or home, I do think obviously, they could sit back a little deeper and then create some space. You saw against Charlotte, 2 of their goals came in transition because Charlotte's pushing, and all of a sudden they're spacing behind, and so we'll have to come up with a game plan for that. And they do have some speed and pace, and have some game changes, with Fernandez, especially Nico. So yeah, again, it's a good unit. It's a good team. They have a lot of quality through, defensively, through the midfield, and they're gonna have to package it maybe in a different way. I don't know. That's for their coach to decide. But we respect them, and these are good games and tight games, and you want to match yourself against really quality teams, and I think that's what they are.
So yeah, a lot of praise there from Bradley Cornell to New York City, like he's done all season long, giving praise to the opposition. But Bradley talked about, that's up to Pascal to decide how they want to approach this game. You talked about it a little bit. You don't think New York City is going to change formations with Aiden and Andrés not being available for this game?
Change it in what manner? I'm not sure what you mean.
So playing with 2 defensive midfielders, do you think they completely change the formation up? Do you think they continue?
No, I don't think so. I don't think the Union are a team that you play 3 at the back, wing backs, and sacrifice your midfield a little bit. I just don't think they'll do that. But I do want one thing that's very. He talked about the counterattack goals against Charlotte. That should be noted if any of the people watching or listening haven't seen the highlights. Those goals were scored on Charlotte set pieces.
Yeah.
They had a corner and a free kick, and they allowed counterattacks and goals by Martínez and Fernandez Mercado. So that was poor on Charlotte's part, and I would imagine that will be a message that Coach Cornell will certainly instill in the team, is that we have to be defensive ready on our own set pieces so that they can't. But, you don't have the pace of Alonso Martínez. Fernandez Mercado can run, but he doesn't have the pace of Martínez. Ojeda has the pace of Martínez. Those 2 are the fastest players on the team for New York City FC, Alonso Martínez, Agustín Ojeda. And it remains to be seen if Ojeda will be in there from the start with the absence of Martínez. We'll see.
Yeah, absolutely. I was going to ask you that. And yeah, it'll be interesting to see how New York City go and approach that. And we've talked about the injuries here to Alonso Martínez and Andrés Perea. And I mean, Alonso, that's such a tough player for anybody to replace. I mean, leads the team in goals.
They have 20. New York City has 20 wins, all competitions. All right, 20. He's got 12 game-winning goals in those 20 matches. So, case closed. Enough said, and let's move on.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, so I mean, you talked about it, midfield, what New York City could potentially do. Replacing Martínez, you can't do that. Yeah, and so I mean, what's been the message from Pascal and what you're hearing from the players in the training with those injuries to the players? What's kind of been
They
that
don't
message?
talk about it. They don't
Wow.
talk about it, and that's another Pascal trait. It's just like I said, the 2-week break, this international, playing on turf. It's not anything that he'll talk about with the team and the players. Kevin O'Toole, Matt Freese said the same thing today. Look, they feel bad for their teammates that they can't be involved and what happened to them, but they don't. There's not discussion about it. And I'm sure there's not. I mean, that's what they're telling us. And I'm certain that there's not. It's just, let's prepare for the game. That's the pragmatic approach. And then see what the opponent is up to and be ready. And the thing that the Philadelphia fans need to understand, and Philadelphia could thrash New York City on Sunday. It could be a 3-0 game. I don't expect it to be. But and one of the reasons why is that New York City's had an ability, and I give a lot of credit to Pascal and his coaching team. They can adjust to whatever the opponent throws at them. So if New York City sets up a certain way and they're not certain they like the way it's going, there's enough versatility in that starting 11, and there has been, where they can adjust on the fly, and they'll do it on their own or they'll do it with instruction. But that's what I like most about how the team's developed, is that they're able to play in different ways against different teams and able to make those sort of adjustments in game, like midway through the first half. We've seen changes of shape and seen players move positions midway through the first half at times because they just see it's not working. So that's what I like about them.
And it's a good point you bring up. Bradley Cornell was asked about that a couple of weeks ago, where Bradley said, you can look 5 minutes in a game and the team, okay, you start out in one shape and you're already in 3 different shapes just because of where the ball is going and everything. And having your team be able to adjust to the fly and everything and be in different positions than what they normally lined up is a testament to good coaching and just how well these players are just going about their job and buying into the philosophy, the principles that Bradley Cornell always preaches about. And I'm sure it's the same with New York City. But for Union
Philadelphia, man, I like watching Philadelphia play, and I think they're underrated in terms of their ability to keep the ball and make things happen in possession. Everybody talks about either, high press, win the ball direct, and on the contrary, and that's why they're the Supporter Shield winners, and that's why they're the favorites in this game, I would say, is that they can play in multiple ways. And they've scored some beautiful goals this year, man. Front and center. I haven't seen every goal, but this is a team that can play. If they need to keep the ball and build through certain parts of the field, they can do it. It might not be their preference, generally going in, but if it's necessary, they do it. So this is, I like them. To me, Philadelphia, San Diego, they're my 2 favorite teams in the league, outside of what I know about New York City, and I cover them. And but Philadelphia and San Diego, those are the 2 teams that, boy, if you have a choice, you're not going to pick them to play against.
Yeah,
I don't feel that way about any other team in the league, even LAFC with good old Son and Vancouver with Mueller, and I just don't feel that way about any other team other than Philadelphia and San Diego. So we'll see what happens.
So I guess from your perspective, you would have rather have had this game be the Eastern Conference Final than the semifinals.
What I would rather have had is that Philadelphia got knocked off by Chicago and New York City would be hosting this game. That's the thing that would have been cool. See, I had it all mapped out, and MLS, this was their nightmare. Well, MLS had a couple of nightmare scenarios. Well, one came to fruition. Minnesota, without winning any of the 3 games against Seattle, have advanced, which is criminal. But Minnesota's a good team, but it's still criminal that they didn't win a game and Seattle did, and Minnesota is advancing. But that's the way this best of 3 works. That's why I'm going to say, mark my words, the best of 3 will not exist next year. Mark my words, because what was threatening to happen in this New York City-Charlotte series, listen to this, and I don't know if you may have thought about it, But if that game 3 ended 0-0 and Charlotte won in penalties, Charlotte would have advanced without winning a game and without scoring a goal. Now, that would have been even a bigger nightmare. All right. That would have been even a bigger nightmare. So, but the MLS nightmare, probably equal to that, would be New York City hosting the MLS Cup final because, well, we needed Austin, or who was it? It was either Austin or I can't remember the other team that would have had to upset their way to the final. It was never going to happen. Portland. Yeah. So it was Austin or Portland. So if one of them got to the final on the west side and New York City upset their way and got the proper results with Cincinnati being eliminated, Miami and Philadelphia, then New York City could have hosted a MLS Cup at Yankee Stadium, which I would laugh about, and there'd be a lot of tears elsewhere. But that's where it goes.
That is for sure.
But the likelihood of it happening, obviously, a lot of things would have more than lightning striking. There would have been, I don't know what the percentages were there.
I mean, it had to have been so slim, so slim. But what players? I mean, yes, we talked about the injuries, we beat it to death. But what players, in your opinion, for New York City need to step up for them to go to the Eastern Conference Final once again?
Hannes Wolf. Agustin Ojeda. Now, again, if these guys are getting major minutes, Hannes Wolf is a regular in the 11, so I don't think I'm giving away anything if I suggest that he's going to start and be important. But Hannes Wolf is going to be vital. He's got to be dangerous and make things happen. If Agustin Ojeda is at the start, you would think it's going to be Agustin Ojeda or Julian Fernandez. So let's just figure one of those two. They're going to whoever that player is on the right side or the left side, depending on how it's set up. They're going to be important. Nico Fernandez Mercado and Maxi Morales. So I'm listing that front four, whoever they are, and I think it's going to Wolf, Fernandez Mercado, and Maxi are a lock. So I think pinning it on one player is tough. Alonso, they put a lot of faith in him, and rightly so when you see how he produces in the big moments. But Fernandez Mercado may be on the verge. He scored 2 against Charlotte in game 3, and they were great goals. Mm-hmm. He's the guy. If you're really going to look at somebody on the attacking side, he's the guy. He's got special quality. And Bradley, he made mention of him in his presser, and rightly so. He is a special player. He's a good player, man, and he can make things happen. So maybe he's the guy. It's going to be more on him with Alonso out. So let's see what happens.
Yeah, there's been so many good South Americans that have come through with New York City, as you're familiar with, Glenn, and could Marcal be the latest player? It's looking that way. And so I think from a Philadelphia perspective, in my opinion, it's got to be Indiana Vassilev. Yeah, Vasilev's not going to score you a lot of goals. He's a player that does a lot of the dirty work. And yeah, Bradley had mentioned it. They expect that New York City may sit back a little bit deeper than what they normally would. And you talked about it. 2 of the goals that New York City scored against Charlotte came off of Charlotte set pieces, and the New York City hit them on the counterattack. And so, yeah, I think for me personally, there's no doubts in Indy's ability defensively for this team, but can they get a little bit more out of him offensively? 3 goals in his last 5 games. Yes, I'm aware that 2 of those goals were against New York City. Against DC United. 4 goals created in his last 5 games. Not going to create you a lot of chances, but it had looked like the last couple games he's starting to get into his own offensively. The Union, of course, are going to rely on Kai Wagner to create a lot of chances. I believe he still leads the league in crosses whipped into the box. Milan Olaski is finding his form, has found his form ever since coming over from Europe, and with an acquisition, nobody could have predicted that Quinn Sullivan was going to tear his ACL. But what great timing, what great business by the Union's front office to bring in Milan Olaski. But yeah, for me, I think it's Indiana Vassilev, seeing what he can do offensively. You had mentioned what New York City could do defensively. Maybe they want Kai Wagner to have the ball on his right foot, put pressure on him, try to win the ball back. We know that the Union love to push their fullbacks high up in the area. Well, Indiana Vassilev is going to play on that left side of the field. He's got to cover for Kai when he's pushed up. And New York City, they're going to be chomping at the bit to hit the Union on the counterattack. And so Bradley Cornell was asked about Indiana Vassilev. at the start of the season, yes, they had a prior relationship at St. Louis City, but where you look at Indy now in this point of the season, and this is what Cornell had to say about Vasilev.
Yeah, I think he's grown a comfort within his surroundings, right? I think you've seen him progress, and he hit the ground running. Yeah, no doubt about that. I think there was a comfort level of knowing what's expected because of our time and working together in St. Louis. But now, playing with the players that he has around him, has just been able to forge and produce a nice cohesive, whether it's with the ball or against the ball, and sometimes. He's a silent leader. He's not silent, trust me. He's loud, he jokes, and but he goes about his business in the most distinguished way. And he adds value both sides of the ball. And I think he's a good role model to have in the team. He shows the way on the field, and he commits to everything we do. So I think it's safe to say he's been really important. And I think all our 10s play a special role in the system, the 9s and the 10s. I think they have to give so much more, and sometimes they don't receive all for the output that they're giving, right? But over the course of the season, you've seen what benefits the whole team, and what gets us, some silverware in the Shield, and hopefully a deep run in the playoffs.
So there's Coach Cornell with his thoughts on Indiana Vasilev, and we know that Vasilev's been a key part for this Union team defensively. Offensively, I'd mention, want to see a little bit more out of him. But look, I don't think Cornell, this team's going to care how they get the goal as long as they get a goal and advance into the Eastern Conference Final. And for me, I really want to see a big game from Indiana Vasilev. But you mentioned multiple players there for New York City, and Maxim Morales is a player that, look, we know what happened back in 2021, a dangerous player against the Union, and he's still creating chances. I mean, he's a phenomenal player, and definitely will go down as a New York City legend. And I think he has the ability to give him enough time and space on the ball. He'll make a difference, and he could hurt the Union this game. I'll be honest. I mean, we've seen him doing it in the past, and we know he has it in his locker. So whether it be a Danley John Jock or Jovan Lukic, they've got to be locked on knowing where Maxi is at all times.
Well, and he's 38 years old, and so he along with Justin Hack and Agustin Ojeda, they were the only 3 players to play in every game this year, all competitions. And also, he's got the second most minutes logged for a New York City player behind Justin Hack. So it's really been a phenomenal year for him because, he's coming off over a year ago now, though, off an ACL himself that he had to rehab last preseason, and he wasn't quite ready at the beginning of the year, and then worked his way in. So what he's done to recover and then still regain 11 assists this year. That's the most assists he's had since he had 20, the second most in the league back in, I believe that was 2019. So he's been vital to their success this year, but he was starting to wear down. So to be quite honest with you, this break, very good for him individually. And he looked very fresh in game 3 against Charlotte. And so I expect Maxi to be a big part of this. He's a leader. He doesn't accept anything from any of his teammates in the run of it, but their best. And so he's an important cog, no question.
Absolutely. And the last thing I'll mention and bring up is Matt Freese. You talked about him at the beginning of the show, and it's phenomenal to see him getting his chances with the national team, being the number 1 goalkeeper. And you occasionally hear people in Philadelphia still say, well, he didn't have what it takes to be a goalkeeper in Philadelphia. And I'm like, that's hogwash. Like, he was playing behind Andrés. He was never going to get the number 1
all
spot.
they have to do is talk to Phil Wedden, the goalkeeper coach,
absolutely.
and they would understand that that's not the case. But anyway.
Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. I get so offended when I hear Union fans say that. I'm like, Matt Freese was a phenomenal goalkeeper, but the Union did right by him. They sent him to a place where he had the opportunity to fight for the number 1 spot and eventually makes it his own. You had mentioned Phil Wedden, the Philadelphia Union goalkeeper coach, but I want to talk about the New York City goalkeeper coach, Rob Van Tugen, who Union fans may be familiar with. Used to be an assistant coach here, used to be the technical director, but he's been with New York City since their inception back in 2014. He's been through multiple different coaching changes. And I think that really speaks about the quality of the coach that Rob is, in my opinion, Glenn.
Oh, Rob's tremendous. Matt gives him a Matt gives him a lot of credit. Let's face it. So Matt Freese came over from Philadelphia, where under Jim Curtin, and for the most part under Bradley Carnell, there is no, the goal kick gets sent to the center circle and beyond, and we go from there. And New York City, complete opposite. You have to be able to play with your feet as the keeper for the New York City Football Club. And I remember interviewing Matt last May. We had a long sit down, and he kind of just chuckled because I asked him, I said, how is it in training, with the different scenarios that they're putting you through? And he said, yeah, I mean, I'm a little better now, but I'm not very good, because it was not the expectation in Philadelphia. So, he had to develop really a whole new, I don't want to say technique, but he had to polish up his ability to use his feet. And he's become very good with that. Left-footed, right-footed. It doesn't always work 100%, but he's much better with his feet than Sean Johnson was, who was with New York City FC for years. And Sean got a lot better, but Matt has gotten a lot better more quickly. And I think that just kind of gives you an idea of, why he's elevated himself on the international level as well, as the number one for the U.S. men right now. 12 consecutive games in goal. Things could still happen, but he's the number one right now, and he's going to have to play his way out of that, I think, rather than anybody beating him out at this point. So to be able to, and he has shown there that he can play the ball small with his feet, or he can clip a ball to his right. He can clip it to his left. He can drive it to a target, and so he's improved in his distribution like dramatically. And then shot stopper extraordinaire. And then penalties. I mean, if you're in a tournament situation, that's why he's going to, he is the number one now, and there's little question he's going to be with the U.S. in the summer. But even when it was less clear, after that Costa Rica match, when he made 3 saves in the penalties, everybody saw he made 3 saves in the penalties in Game 3 against Cincinnati last year to get New York City through to the next round, this same round, the Eastern Conference semis. I mean, the guy loves the penalty kick shootout. He loves it. And you need a guy like that in a tournament situation, because games go to penalties eventually sometimes.
Yeah, they absolutely do. And it's been phenomenal to watch just the progression from Matt Freese, and wish him all the best. And hopefully that he continues to develop into the goalkeeper that the Union always knew he could be, just that wasn't going to happen in Philadelphia, playing behind Andre Blake. And Union fans see maybe a little bit of a similar situation with Andrew Rick, who has filled in multiple times this season because of injuries to Andre Blake. And it was the case last year too, but maybe the moments were a little bit too big for Rick, his first season with the club, and now having a full season under his belt, knowing what to expect, and now having the trust and the belief of his teammates, now has grown into a confident number 2 goalkeeper where, yeah, maybe it is time for him to go on loan and play as a number 1 someplace, whether it be elsewhere in MLS or playing in USL. But yeah, I mean, the Union.
I don't think so. I wouldn't do that if I were the Union, because look, Andre Blake is, he is getting older, and he's a little bit more susceptible to getting injured these days. And part of it is the way he plays in goal. I mean, he's unbelievable. I've thought this. So I've been covering the league for 11 years now. And if anybody asks me Andre Blake's my, he's my all-time fave here in MLS for the time I've been here. I would pick him ahead of anybody. But, as you get older, sometimes you're a little bit more susceptible to that. So you have to, I wouldn't move. I think Rick has gotten better, and I wouldn't move him. It's unfortunate because guys, eventually, he hasn't been around long enough to say, hey, he's like Matt Freese, let's give him another chance. Nah, keep him.
It's interesting to hear your perspective. I mean, I feel like Jose and I talk about that quite often on the show, that we both say, yeah, we would loan him just because you want this kid to keep developing, and it doesn't help you being on the bench or playing MLS Next Pro, and we don't need to go.
It's about winning games with the senior team, man. And, if you have a less, and that Blake, something could happen, you want to be certain that you have the guy in there that's going to be able to just keep it rolling. And I think with Rick, I've been impressed when I've seen him. So he started against New York City in that game that City won 1-0.
Yeah.
And now he came out he kind of rushed out on that goal. Alonso Martínez dribbled him and then just stuck it in the back of the net. But Alonso Martínez dribbled Andre Blake, on October the 4th also. So, he may have that little special quality there.
Yeah, absolutely. And the one thing about Rick is he's so much better with the ball at his feet than Andre Blake is. And we've seen Rick just start attacks, just hoofing the ball, finding teammates higher up the field and everything. And it is interesting to see how much the games progress with teams wanting goalkeepers that are good with the ball at their feet. And I can remember talking to Phil Whedon a couple years about that, where, he does value goalkeepers that like to be comfortable with the ball at their feet, but it's not really how the Union play. They don't play, or under Jim Curtin, they didn't play out of the back. We've seen them play out of the back at times with Bradley Cornell this season, and that's the way that the modern game is going. More teams playing out of the back. But Glenn, 51 minutes. It's been a blast having you back on the podcast, and really looking forward to this game. Hopefully we get a great, entertaining game on Sunday at 7:30, 7:55, I believe kickoff is, because of it being on FS1. So, hopefully the fans, the media, the commentators like yourself get entertained to a very, very good game. But
I'll have fun regardless. I'm always going to have fun. I got Matty Lawrence by my side, and we always have a good time.
Absolutely. But for listeners who aren't aware of your work, like I mentioned, you're in SiriusXM. You do a podcast with Roberto where you guys talk New York City, but you guys also talk about the league and the U.S. men's national team. You talk about it all. So for fans that want to go ahead and listen to you and find your work, where can they find it?
Well, that's called NYCFC Views Live. So there's an NYCFC component to that every week, obviously. But Roberto's been around even, this league longer than me. I mean, so, we're – and we've been with New York City since the first kick, so we've seen a lot of MLS. So sometimes we pull out our backgrounds historically, what we've experienced, and and then we go domestic, global. I think it's a good pod, and then I have another podcast called Glenn Crooks on Frame. I'm not as regular on there, but if I have a good interview, I'll throw it up there. Like I got Matt Freese today and Kevin O'Toole. It'll be up on Frame tomorrow. O'Toole had that experience with the Ireland national team, so we talked a lot about that. And then the SiriusXM FC show, the Coaching Academy. So you have to have a subscription for SiriusXM, but Bruce Springsteen channel, I mean, that's worth the monthly fee unto itself. And then you add a soccer channel, and where can you go wrong? But there's a lot of other stuff on there too. And if you don't mind, Todd, I'd like to, it's not yet published, but it will be on December the 1st, I'm told, by my publisher. But I have authored a book called Put It on Frame. And it's pretty interesting, I think. And Phil Whedon won't be in this book, but he'll be in volume 2. I'm going to have 3 volumes. And what it is resurrecting all these interviews I've done since I retired from collegiate coaching. And I counted them up. It's over 1,200 interviews. So we're bringing some of them back to life in these books. But it's called Put It on Frame. And, I think that I like it. I mean, the book, I've seen it. I have it. It's just not published yet. So December 1st, hopefully. So, go out, you can buy it if you want. And, to help me out so I can, I'm eating rice tonight. So I would like to add the chicken to it also. So if you could buy a couple of books, that'd be great.
Yeah, absolutely. And as always, I'll go ahead and once you get that published and everything, I'll put links in the shared description so listeners can go back and click on the link.
Thank you. Well, thanks for letting me say that, because we're just about getting started to promote it more readily. So I appreciate it. And I'm trying to think, because I talked to Bradley this year. So the thing is that in the subsequent volumes, there'll be some Union people in there. So
look, even more reason for Union fans to go ahead and get the book. So.
Definitely. Well, yeah. Todd, good luck to you too. I'm glad the podcast is still rolling. You've been on for how long now?
2019, 2020, something like that. 2020, I think.
So, yeah, you're keeping track of your episodes? How many episodes?
We're at 379 now, but I've done over 500. I think we're approaching 600 because before the Union, it was all English Premier League and then non-league soccer in England. So, yeah.
Well, you make sure you mark. I hope you're marking these special moments, 500, 600, those are special numbers.
Yeah, they definitely get celebrated. And so,
all right.
It was interesting too, because I'll go ahead and show you this, but I had this. Let's see, can you see it? The coaching academy. It says,
Where'd you get that? Did I give that to you?
Yeah, you gave it to me last year in Anaheim at the soccer coaches convention.
I forgot. That's a good one. It's a good feeling pen, isn't it?
It's so good. It's so good. And so
I know.
I'm using it to write my notes. And when I pulled it out, I was like, you know what, let's go ahead and hit up Glenn and see if he's available to come on the podcast. So yeah, this small reminder reminding me of Glenn.
And here's mine. And I've had these pens for 2 years. I haven't had one run out of ink yet. I don't understand what's going on. But anyway, there you go.
These are super, super pens. So very, very grateful to have one of these. And
you're welcome.
Yeah. It is really, really cool, and it's great seeing you with all your different projects that you do, Glenn, and so grateful that you were able to come onto the podcast. But for listeners that want to follow on Twitter, Instagram, or Facebook, follow at Free Kick Pod, wherever you get your podcast, The Free Kick. Check out the YouTube channel, youtube.com/freekickpod. We're live every single podcast. You can also check out the goals breakdown videos on YouTube. If you want to check out my writing, the podcast, or the goals breakdown video, go to thefreekick.substack.com. But yes, hopefully you guys bundle up. I'm sure, like it is always in wintertime, you feel that cold, brisk air flowing off the Delaware River. And hopefully there's some goals for you guys to celebrate, that the game doesn't have to go 120 minutes and into penalties, because it will be a late Sunday.
Please, because our setup for our radio is literally outdoors, almost in the crowd, which I love. But let's end it at 90, huh?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. But until then, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.